by saying that they're not human beings, am I saying that they're aliens? No, I'm not saying that they're aliens. I'm not saying I believe in aliens. I'm not saying I don't believe in aliens. I can tell you that as a young man, I always believed in aliens and considered myself on the forefront of human, culture or science or whatever, because I, believed in these aliens. And my belief system is actually quite different today, now that I realize that most of what we've been taught all our lives is a lie. Most everything you know is a lie. Okay. If you're somebody that's going to get offended by that statement, you're probably not watching this show anyway. So I'm not worried about offending any readers. This show is not for children. It's very serious subjects. So anyway, I don't know what the people are. The elongated people, they apparently had basket weaving and stuff like that and more primitive clothes. So I mean, I don't think they were going around in UFOs. However, they are associated with these megalithic structures that have technologies built into them that defy explanation and are in some ways more modern and sophisticated than many of the things we have today. Now, let me point out two of the world's greatest researchers of the elongated skulls, and this is Brian Forrester. If you read his name, it looks like it says Brian, but it's pronounced Brian, and then Maria Wheatley. Maria Wheatley of the UK, who is a expert on the on Stonehenge. She has discovered a mass grave of elongated skulls people. In other words, and they were executed. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of these people were rounded up ostensibly by human beings and burned to death or hacked to death, whatever. They were killed en masse. And this was an event, and we see this happening over and over. For instance, the Paracas people of Peru were decimated and then ultimately wiped out completely by the Nazca people. And you say the Nazca people, it kind of rings a bell. Why is that? Because of the world famous Nazca lines. And I think we've got some footage here of me and the team at the Nazca lines on one of the observation towers looking out onto the plane at the Nazca lines. My idea or theory of how things should be, as far as like the Nazca lines, probably should not be called the Nazca lines, because I do not believe that the Nazca people had a hand in creating the Nazca lines. Now we know that the Paracas people were sophisticated beyond your average human beings, 2,500 years ago, whenever it was, and they were decimated and eradicated by the Nazca people. So shouldn't these Nazca lines, in fact, probably be called the Paracas lines? Just something to think about, Just something to think about. Let me tell you my own personal observations about the elongated skulls and my reason for stating unequivocally that they're not human skulls. First of all, you and I have, on top of our skull, you have 3 plates. You have a frontal plate, and that's actually the scientific name for this bone on your forehead is actually called the frontal plate. That's the scientific name for it. And then in the back of your head, you have your occipital plates, your left and right hemisphere, your left and right occipital plates. This is a human skull. The elongated skulls people do not have that. They have 2 plates on their head, a front and a back. Okay, and then a big hole at the very top that's thought to allow for increased blood veins or something like this, or nerves, because of the enlarged capacity of the head would need, I guess, additional blood. It sounds like a good explanation to me. The eye sockets of the elongated skulls people are radically different than the eye sockets of human beings. We think of the skull as, this is not a human skull obviously, but a human, when you look at a human skull, or in caricatures of it or whatever, we're going to see the old Jolly Roger here. I don't know if you can see that. The Jolly Roger, the skull and crossbones, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Captain, what's his name on Caribbean, and George Bush, Skull and Bones, right? You know, the skull and bones. And there's a lot of information we have about that. But if you'll notice on this, depiction of skulls, they look somewhat round. So the idea of human skulls is that they're rounded eyes, and the big, grimace, the big grin. That's really not what a human skull looks like. The eye sockets of a human skull are actually more like two, vaguely upside down triangles with the point pointing down. They're more kind of triangular. They're very deep set into the skull with ridges and stuff around them, and they're not round. They're like upside down triangles. Whereas the elongated skulls people have round eye sockets. Round eye sockets, not triangular, bigger, much bigger than ours. So they had big eyes and shallower. Whereas a human being has very deep eye sockets. These beings, that's why we have an eyeball, because there's enough room in there to put a ball. Well, their eye sockets were much deeper. Were much shallower. And so their eye could not have looked like a ball. It'd probably be more like a fish or something, or like, two contact lenses put together, like a clam, or I don't know, exactly what it looked like. But these are not human eyes. Okay, now we go to the next morphology of the skull that makes it markedly different from the human skull, and this is the robust jawbone. We're talking about robust. If you were to hit one of these people while they were alive in the jaw, you would undoubtedly shatter your hand. Because they got a jawbone like you wouldn't believe. It's thick and it's heavy set, and it's bigger than ours. It's more profound. And in some cases, this is not any type of conspiracy or anything like that. This actually gets kind of into a different subject, but it depends on where these elongated skulls are found. Some of them in groups or racial genotypes or whatever have double rows of teeth. In other words, you got your inside and outside teeth on the bottom and your inside and outside teeth on the top. You got, instead of upper and lower, you have 4 rows of teeth. And where have we heard this before? That's right. The giants. The giants had double rows of teeth. So what is this connection between the elongated skulls people and the giants? Well, there's several. And I don't really want to go into that right now. The study of giants is one of the main topics that we look at here, and that's going to be for another episode. The discovery that I have made by immersing myself in this culture and being fascinated with these elongated skulls since I was a child, and then going out there to Peru to investigate them personally, is I came to realize this. Yes, the elongated skulls are generally bigger than human skulls. They're definitely bigger. But unlike the human being, where the male and female skull are relatively the same size, okay? We know that, say, if a man and a woman were about the same size, or maybe from the same family, that the male skull would probably be slightly bigger, but in general, they really are about the same size. There's ways that science can tell, who has a female skull and who has a male skull based on different, factors. Unlike the Paracas people, because this is what I've discovered. All elongated skulls, including skull number 176 that I've been looking at since a child, up until recently, when Brian Forster has displayed a elongated skull that's 21 inches from chin to the back of the head. All elongated skulls that we've been looking at our entire lives are all female. They're all female. And there's a reason for this, because unlike the human being, where the male skull and the female skull is relatively the same size, with the elongated skulls people, the male skull, thus the male head, is in general right about twice the size of the female's head. That is a huge difference between the elongated skulls people, or the long heads, and the human being. It's fucking huge. Yeah! They're big, man, I'm telling you, and that's why I, fondly or not so fondly, have termed the elongated skull people the big-headed motherfuckers. That's it, huh? Ooh, that's it. Can't stand those punks. Ooh wee. Woo! So there you have it. There we go. I was involved in the ayahuasca ritual when I went to Peru. I'm not the type of person who's going to go to an ayahuasca ritual in South America and go in front of someone claiming to be a shaman whose name is Donnie, McDougal or something like that, or Jason Smith, a white man. What's the point? I mean, if I'm going to go to see a shaman, he better not have one drop of white blood in him. I'm not being prejudiced. I'm just, I want to go for the authentic thing. So that's exactly what we did. I did. I was the only one in our group that went and did the ritual, and it was profound. I can maybe go into that another time. One thing that was different about it is that the shaman, the healer, the curandero, part of his presentation that he did is to explain the story of Peru, what he called the oppression, or the exploitation of Peru. And there was all the men there. Most of them were sick. They were there to get cured of various diseases, unlike these, love, light, and health. Which there's nothing wrong with these other ayahuasca retreats. People go in there for various reasons, and maybe stars and stuff like that. Maybe to combat addiction or depression or gambling or something like this, or to have some type of spiritual awakening. These men were all there to get cured by the curandero, and so they had different diseases. I don't know what they were, cancer, I'm sure, and other stuff. They were sick. They were,